I'm Nigel Lythgoe, and this is The Enemy Within, a unique quiz where all the answers have already been given to one of the contestants. That person is called the enemy, and they will live up to that name if they're not discovered, because that will allow them to leave with everyone else's winnings. Let's meet our contestants. Brian Durand from Liverpool, Daniela Bayliss from Kent, Geraint Jones from Cardiff, Anne Sala from Sheffield, and Atin Wickham from London. We have never met each other before now. All we know is that one of you is the enemy. Have a look at the person next to you. That could be your enemy. They have the advantage. They've seen the questions. But will they use them? Let's meet our first enemy suspect. Brian Durand, you're a highway engineer. Let's see what you said when we asked you, do you think cheats are born or are they made?
Either, but I think the best are those who are born. Some people can learn to cheat, but they're the ones who aren't so good at it. I've always played sport. I play to win. If that involves cheating, it has to be.
Brian, it sounds to me as though you were born to cheat. Brian Durand, are you the enemy?
No, Nigel, I'm not the enemy.
Then I'll ask you 3 questions. Each one of them is worth £25. If you don't know the answer or you answer incorrectly, I will throw it open for a bonus. Remember, although you're answering questions, you have to pick up on the clues in order to spot today's enemy. Let's begin round 1. In 1971, which Blue Peter presenter joined Princess Anne on the Royal Safari to Kenya?
John Noakes.
Throwing it open, Anne.
Valerie Singleton.
Correct. Diesel and turbine are types of what?
Engine.
Correct. In which #1 hit of 1987 did Madonna dream of San Pedro?
La Isla Bonita.
Absolutely right. Let's move to our second enemy suspect, Daniela Bayliss, a housewife. We asked her, how would you feel if someone cheated on you?
I think that cheating and lying in games is completely contemptible and should never be done by anyone, unless, of course, they are clever enough and good enough at it to win.
I don't think you'll be saying that later if the enemy is clever enough and good enough to win. Daniela Bayliss, are you the enemy?
No, of course I'm not.
Your 3 questions. What is the world's longest-running TV current affairs programme?
Today.
Throwing it open, Brian.
Panorama.
Correct. What is the chemical symbol for potassium?
K.
Absolutely. Were you good at science at school?
Yes.
You don't list it as one of your favourite subjects.
No, I did get chemistry O-level.
The faces of 4 American presidents are carved into which South Dakota cliffs?
Rockwood.
Throwing it open, Anne.
Mount Rushmore.
Correct. Let's move on to our third enemy suspect, Geraint Jones, a sales representative. Let's see what he said when we asked him, what do you think about people who cheat?
I think people who cheat in general are people who are pretty sure that they can't win without breaking the rules of the game. Personally, I'd rather lose than know that I won a game by breaking the rules.
Well, you may well lose today, Geraint. You're on a show that breaks the rules. One of the 4 people around you have been given the answers to the question. That is, of course, if it is not you. Geraint Jones, are you the enemy?
No, I'm not.
Your 3 questions. Which beverage is sometimes prepared in a percolator?
Coffee.
Correct. The Reverend Joy Carroll was the inspiration for which Vicar of Dibley character?
I don't know.
Throwing it open. Geraldine Granger was the answer. The enemy decided not to buzz in or decided not to give me the correct answer, Geraint. Between 1986 and 1992, Corazon Aquino was president of which country?
Philippines.
Correct. Was that a guess?
Educated guess.
Let's move on to our 4th enemy suspect, Anne Sala, a project worker. We asked her, when is cheating acceptable?
I don't think cheating is acceptable at any time. But I do understand we have to cheat sometimes by saying, if my children want to go to a fast food bar, and I think, well, they've had a little bit too much fast food this week, and I'll say, I'm sorry, it's closed. And that's okay.
Well, you know for a fact that cheating is acceptable on this show. and Sala. Are you the enemy?
No, not at all, Nigel.
Your 3 questions. What does the abbreviation PAYE stand for? Throwing it open.
Pay as you earn.
Pay as you earn. Who played Captain Macaulay in the film Pearl Harbor?
Ben Affleck.
Correct. The poems of which former goon include On the Ning Nang Nong?
Spike Milligan.
Correct. Let's meet our final enemy suspect. Atin Wickham is a teacher. Let's see what he said when we asked him, do you think cheats prosper?
Well, I'd like to think they don't, but I suppose if you're cheating your bus fare because you're a bit skinned, that's okay and that's fine. But if you're cheating millions of people out of a lot of money, like big business sometimes does or some politicians do, then I think maybe they do.
Well, you know that they do on this show, Atin. So, Atin Wickham, are you the enemy?
Of course, I'm not Nigel.
Your 3 questions, each one of them is worth £25. In 1999, who became the oldest solo female to top the UK chart with Believe?
Cher.
Correct. What was the name of the RAF base in Berkshire where a woman's peace camp protested at the deployment of cruise missiles in 1982?
Greenham Common.
Greenham Common is correct. In theatre, the Larry Award is a bust of which actor in his role as Henry V?
Laurence Olivier.
Absolutely right. 3 out of 3. Well, that's the end of that round, and I'm not going to reveal your running totals at this point. Only our viewers at home will be able to see them. And at the moment, Brian and Anne are joint leaders. If you think you know who the enemy is, you can telephone us at the end of the next round when the lines will be open, and maybe you can win yourself some money today, which is more than you might win unless you can spot the enemy by the end of this show. Now, if you didn't pick up any clues in round 1, you're going to have to get your heads down and pick them up in round 2, which is a buzzer round. Each question is going to be worth £50. And remember, the enemy doesn't have to buzz in. They can sit back and let you do all the work. So you're going to have to focus, and let's try and flush out the faker in round 2. Which British island hosted Bob Dylan's return to live performance in 1969? Atin.
Isle of Man.
No, I'm throwing it open. Brian.
Isle of Wight.
Correct. What is a funambulist? It's a tightrope walker. Which alcoholic spirit earned the nickname Mother's Ruin? Garant.
Gin.
Correct. What nationality are punk band The Strokes? Brian.
American.
They are indeed. Do you like punk bands, Brian?
No, but me 20-year-old son does.
Right.
Yeah.
In 1666, what began in a baker's shop? Atin.
The Great Fire of London.
It did indeed. What is the small hammer used by a judge or an... Atin.
The Gavel.
Correct. Ain't No Doubt topped the 92 singles chart for which Geordie actor? Brian.
Jimmy Nail.
Correct. I guess your 20-year-old likes Jimmy Nail as well, does he?
No, nobody likes Jimmy Nail.
Nobody will like you, Brian, if you're today's enemy.
Fair enough.
Held at the NEC Birmingham since 1991, which is Britain's premier dog show? Daniela.
Crafts.
It is indeed. Which Czech-born tennis star won her first Wimbledon? Atin.
Martina Navratilova.
Martina Navratilova is correct. Which Parenthood actor went on to star in the 1999 film The Matrix? Geraint.
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is correct, and that's the end of that round. I'm still not going to reveal your individual scores. All I will tell you is that Brian is now in the lead. But does that mean he's today's enemy? We're now at the halfway stage. You must be forming opinions. Let's pick up on your thoughts. Brian, you're in the lead at the moment, but who do you think the enemy is?
I just got a vibe it might be Anne.
Just a vibe.
Yeah, it's just the way she responded when you asked her, was she the enemy?
Daniela,
I think it's Anne as well.
and why do you think it's Anne?
Just because of the way she is when she answers her questions.
Quite
And
calm?
I think she deliberately didn't answer the PAYE one. I think she knew the answer to that.
Very strange not to know that, especially if you pay tax.
It's far too common not to know.
Geraint,
I've got an inkling it's Brian.
why do you think it's Brian?
He just seems to know too many answers.
So it isn't because he's clever. You think he's read the answers and he's giving them out now?
Possibly.
Is that a clever tactic, do you think? Isn't that showing immediately that he's the enemy?
Fair comment.
Anne, who do you think the enemy is today? Fingers are pointed at you at the moment.
Well, I think it could be Daniela.
Why do you think it could be Daniela?
Just maybe a reluctance to answer questions and buzz in.
Atin, who do you think is the enemy?
I'm torn between Geraint and Anne.
Really?
I think Geraint did a strange shrug of the shoulders when he answered the Philippines, like acting like he didn't know but getting the answer right, which was a bit strange. But then PAYE, even my 7-year-old nephew knows what that is.
I need you to choose one, not two.
Geraint.
Well, I don't think that you're actually pinning anybody down yet. Your thoughts are all over the place. You are going to have to focus by the end of the game. And you must flush out that faker if you're going to walk home with any money today. The enemy's playing a very clever game at the moment. People are being framed, people are making mistakes, but are they just mistakes, or are they showing you that they're the enemy? How about you at home? Do you think you know who today's enemy is? Have you picked up something that our contestants haven't noticed? If you do, and you want to give us a call, the lines are now open. If you think it's Brian, then call 0901 383 4141. If you think it's Daniela, then call 0901 383 4142. If you think it's Geraint, then call 0901 383 4143. If you think it's Anne, then call 0901 383 4144. If you think it's Atin, then call 0901 383 4145. 5 randomly selected winners will each receive £200. The lines will be open until the end of the final round and calls cost 25 pence. We'll now move on to our third round, where the questions are worth £75, but they are on a specific subject. Your problem is you haven't chosen that specific subject. So it's quite possible that you mightn't get any of those questions right. That is, of course, unless you've seen them. And then, why would you give yourself away? Time is running out as we move into round 3. Brian, your specific subject is board games. You've got children, you've obviously played them.
Yep.
Which classic board game has been available in special editions including Star Wars, Pokemon, and Coronation Street?
Monopoly.
Correct. Cluedo is a popular whodunit game, but who is the murder victim? Throwing it open. Geraint?
Dr. Black.
Correct. Which game is played by 2 people with 15 pieces each on a board consisting of 24 spaces or points?
Backgammon.
Correct. Have you played backgammon?
No. Far too intelligent for me, that.
Really, but you knew the answer.
Yeah, well, that's the only one I can think of with 15. Or that may have 15 anyway.
It may have. Of course, if you haven't played it, you wouldn't know that.
No, I knew drafts had 12, I knew chess had 8, so process of elimination.
Daniela, your specialist subject is TV cooks. Are you good at cooking?
Sometimes,
Do you watch television?
yeah.
What was the name of pioneering TV cook Fanny Craddock's husband? Drag it open, Anne.
Albert.
It was Fanny and Johnny Craddock. Australian Graham Kerr was nicknamed the Galloping What for his TV cookery shows.
Gourmet.
Absolutely right. Which Channel 4 kitchen goddess is the sister of Dominic and daughter of Nigel?
Nigella Lawson.
Correct. Geraint, your specialist subject is the planets. Are you into astronomy?
Yeah,
You are a Star Trek fan,
very much so.
so you should do very well here.
Hopefully.
Which of the planets is furthest from the sun?
Pluto.
Correct. Neptune is named after the Roman god of what?
The sea.
The sea is correct. Galileo first observed which ringed planet in 1610?
Saturn.
Correct. Anne, your specific subject is models. Neasden-born Leslie Hornby became which well-known model?
Kate Moss.
Throwing it open. Brian.
Twiggy.
Correct. Model Jodie Kidd is the great-granddaughter of which press baron? Throwing it open. Atin?
Conrad Black?
No, it was Lord Beaverbrook. Johnny Depp dated which British model who appeared in Calvin Klein's Obsession campaign?
Kate Moss.
Correct. Atin, your specific subject is sitcoms. Do you watch television?
Yeah.
You like comedy?
Yeah.
Not so sure.
Depends what you call comedy, doesn't it?
In Heidi High, which Maplin's yellow coat was played by Ruth Maddock?
The Welsh one.
The Welsh one, Anne?
Peggy.
No, it was Gladys Pugh. I don't believe it is the catchphrase of which sitcom character?
I can't remember.
Try and get open, Brian.
Victor Meldrew.
Victor Meldrew. What was the name of Frank and Betty Spencer's daughter?
Alice.
Try and get open, Daniela.
Jessica.
Jessica. You obviously don't believe that any of those programs were good comedy, Atin.
Well, thinking back, I knew two of the answers, but no, I wouldn't have gone for Heidi High as an all-time classic of comedy, no.
Well, it was a very successful comedy, Atin.
Did you produce it?
No, I didn't. And you didn't produce any right answers there, Atin. For the first time now, I can reveal your cash totals. And for our viewers at home, a reminder of those telephone numbers, which will close at the end of our next round. Anne, you have £175. Atin, you have £225. Daniela, you have £300. Geraint, you have £450. And Brian, you have £550. So Brian is our current leader. Does that make him the cleverest, or is he cheating? Let's take a moment in order to look at some of your backgrounds as we are now coming to the end and you have to make your decisions. Brian Durand, our leader at the moment, could he cheat? Could he tell lies? Well, yes, he could. On coming back from birthday party celebrations, Brian actually relieved himself in a goldfish bowl and blamed it on one of his mates. Daniela Bayliss, before a big dance with her friends at college, she actually made a spaghetti bolognese, filled it with a lot of garlic, told her friends there was no garlic in it whatsoever. And her friends obviously had no dances. And Daniela did. Geraint, you've got a whole catalogue of misdemeanors.
Really?
When you were a child, you actually went out and collected money for your mum because she ran a catalogue, didn't she? You pocketed that money, and only when the catalogue company called up were you found out. What about the time you found a raffle book in the street? You went around and sold raffle tickets, Geraint, and pocketed the money. So he's cheated strangers out of money before now. He'd certainly cheat you out of yours today. Anne went on a radio show and lied that she had a dog because that was part of the criteria for the contestants. She didn't find cheating prospered her that day, though, because she won, but she won a pooper scooper. Atin found himself at Victoria Station having got off a train without a ticket. He went to such extreme measures as to jump over the rail tracks to avoid the ticket inspector that was chasing him. He went in a fish and chip shop and complained that he hadn't been given his can of fizzy drink. He even held a whole bottle of pickled gherkins as hostage to drop on the floor if he wasn't given his can of Coke. When he got home, having been given another can of Coke, he found the first can of Coke at the bottom of his bag. Did you go back and apologise, Atin?
No.
These are the characters that surround you today. And I've got to say, there's such a list of lying and cheating that any one of you could be today's enemy. But you are going to have to build up a character picture in order to find your enemy today. I think we should now move on to our final round, and this is a chance for you all to dramatically increase your totals. The first question is worth £100. Anybody can buzz in and answer it. If the question is answered correctly, then the next question will go up by £25. Remember, the enemy doesn't have to buzz in. They can sit back and let you do all of the hard work. In a moment, I'm going to be asking you the most vitally important question of today. Who is the enemy? You must get that right, and it will be asked at the end of this, our final round. For £100, in the novels by Bernard Cornwell, what is the occupation of Richard Sharp? Brian?
Sailor.
No, he was a soldier in the Napoleonic Wars. Still for £100. Which famous tea clipper is now a museum at Greenwich? Atin?
Cutty Sark.
Correct. For £125. The Lonk and Merino are breeds of which animal? Atin?
Sheep.
Correct. For £150, with which sport is Bisley Camp in Surrey most associated? Geraint?
Shooting.
Correct. For £175, a statue of which queen of the Iceni stands by? Atin?
Boudica.
Boudica or Boadicea, absolutely. £200, what sort of creature gave pop group T-Rex their name? Brian?
A dinosaur.
Correct. For £225, which of the 7 wonders of the ancient world was located at Babylon? Anne?
The Hanging Baskets of Babylon.
Not the hanging baskets, Anne. The hanging gardens. Still for £225, which beans are most commonly used to produce bean sprouts? Daniela?
Alfalfa.
No, it's mung beans. Still for £225, what does the Roman numeral M stand? Brian?
500.
No, it was 1,000. Still for £225, which TV game show does John Virgo co-host? Anne?
Big Break.
Correct. Well, that's the end of the questions, and the phone lines are now closed. I'll give you your final totals. Daniela, you have £300. Anne, you have £400. Geraint, you have £600. Atin, you have £625. And Brian, you have £750, which means that Brian is today's winner. However, that could be the closest any of you get to that money. It can still be stolen from you because the enemy is still within. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to nominate who you believe is today's enemy. And you must give me a majority decision. If you give me a split decision, then it's the audience's vote that will count, whether you agree with it or not. It's now time for that audience vote. So, audience, who is the enemy? Well, at this stage, our audience's vote will only be seen by our viewers at home. You've now had a chance to think. Remember, everything that you've worked for so far will be for nothing unless you correctly identify today's enemy. Brian, who is the enemy?
Anne.
Daniela, who is the enemy?
Anne.
Geraint, who is the enemy?
Anne.
Anne, who is the enemy?
Daniela.
Atin, who is the enemy?
Anne.
A unanimous decision. 4 of the fingers point to you, Anne, but are they right? Will the real enemy stand up? Geraint, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've outwitted all of your fellow contestants. Please take a seat. I have to tell you, you didn't outwit the audience, who realised it was you. You gave a very big clue away right at the beginning of the quiz for me, which was the Philippines. It was almost like you wore a badge saying, "I'm the enemy." You said you guessed it, but you had the whole world to guess from. Did you feel as though you'd let yourself down there?
Partially, and partially as a double bluff.
How do you mean a double bluff?
That it was too obvious.
Too obvious. Did you feel as though you'd made any other mistakes?
I don't think so, but obviously the audience noticed a few.
Well, certainly your fellow contestants didn't, and that's all you had to beat today to win their money, and that came to £2,675, so big congratulations.
Thank you.
Brian, you thought it was Anne. She made a lot of mistakes today, which obviously drew your attention to her.
It was more her demeanour than the questions and the answers that she gave.
Really?
Yeah, it was 50-50 between Geraint and Anne, but chose the wrong one.
Daniela, you thought it was Anne too?
Yep, I thought from her demeanour, but again, I was tossing up between the two. But I knew the answer to the Philippines one, so that didn't necessarily sway me.
Apart from, Geraint did say that it was a guess.
Yeah, but it is a Philippines name. It could be an educated guess.
Anne, they pointed at you. You must have felt sick when all the fingers came at you.
I did. But at least I know I can tell a good lie.
You thought that Daniela was the enemy.
Yes, I did.
Why?
Just how she was sat and sometimes a reluctance to buzz in.
Well, you threw your money away along with Brian and Daniela, as did you, Atin. You've lost £625 today. What made you think it was Anne?
Like I said before, it was a toss-up, and by the time it came to me, I couldn't affect the result, so I thought I'd show solidarity with who I thought were my comrades over there, but they let me down by going for the wrong people at the start.
4 colleagues going home with absolutely nothing. How did you do at home? Did you spot Geraint? Are you a better detective than we've got here today? Or do you think you could be a better enemy than Geraint? If you do, then why not write to us at this address? The Enemy Within, Post Office Box 22122, London SE1 9GL. And please include a stamped self-addressed envelope. Well, that's all for now. Today's cheat Geraint wasn't discovered by our contestants today, but our audience certainly spotted him, and hopefully 5 of you did out there. It just goes to show a good cheat and other people's money are seldom parted. See you next time, and remember, keep your friends close and keep your enemies even closer.